What if the four horsemen of the apocalypse don't obey God, but serve Lucifer instead? Behind every war, every plague, every famine, and every death, there is a silent march, ancient, invisible, unstoppable. The Bible calls them the horsemen of the apocalypse. But what if that's just the official version? Because there are hidden records, burned, buried, forgotten, that tell a very different story. Not one of judgment, but of vengeance. Four forces, four heralds, four generals, not of heaven, but of hell. They don't announce the end. They prepare it. Why do the horsemen appear after the seals of heaven are broken? Yet seem to answer a different, darker command. There's a name that keeps surfacing in forbidden codices, apocryphal gospels, and cursed manuscripts. Lucifer, not as a rebel, but as a commander. According to the apocryphal Liber Maleficarum, suppressed by the Inquisition, Lucifer didn't fall. He was exiled with a mission: to punish, to correct, to rewrite the balance between heaven and earth with blood and silence. And for that he needed four. In the ancient tradition of the Nephilim, the children of the fall, there is mention of four mounted princes, shaped by the abyss, fed by ages of divine resentment. They do not ride to fulfill prophecy. They are the prophecy. War, famine, plague, death. The four horsemen, not as soldiers, as generals, commanded not by heavenly trumpets, but by an angel who dared to question the throne. What if the apocalypse is actually a retaliation mission, orchestrated in hell, in an ancient scroll buried beneath Nag Hammadi, hidden among the Gnostic texts? A fragment whispers, "Durin they followed the one who brings light through shadow," each bearing a seal, not from heaven but from the deep. Christian medieval iconography tried to erase these traces, to remove horns, to sever alliances, to unlink the four from the original fall. But the symbols remain. Four thrones around Lucifer's, four black crowns forged in the abyss, four eternal names etched in flame. And so the disturbing question arises: if the horsemen serve Lucifer, who's really behind the end? But to understand this secret war, we must go back to the beginning, to the day heaven was torn apart and Lucifer didn't fall. He was followed. What do you think about this? Let me know in the comments. What if the first battle of the apocalypse began millennia ago? In the hidden archives of the Vatican, there exists a rarely mentioned codex, attributed to Origen of Alexandria, in which the breaking of the first seal doesn't simply reveal a rider, but the release of an ancient entity imprisoned in the Valley of Echoes. Its name? Ethan, the personification of war. Riding a horse red as clotted blood, he doesn't fight for conquest. He fights to break. Not for God, but for an oath made in the shadow of the fall. The Ethiopian Book of the Watchers, a version older than Genesis, describes an assembly of fallen angels. Among them, one of the first to kneel before Lucifer, not in submission, but in loyalty to an ideal, to reveal to humanity the truth of a corrupted heaven. Ethan was a general before earth existed, and when the gates closed upon the fallen, he swore, "I will break with blood what was sealed with lies." In Cathar writings destroyed during the Albigensian Crusade, a cryptic passage describes the war rider. The first of the four does not ride to fight. He rides to ignite, from the ashes of Troy to the trenches of World War I. Symbolic records speak of the same presence. A faceless flaming rider surrounded by screams, not from mouths, but from souls. He doesn't cause wars, he ignites them, like a match to the dry straw of mankind. What if war is not political but spiritual? Not geopolitical, but demonic? In Byzantine art, the Red Rider sometimes appears with a sword raised not forward, but upward toward heaven. A forbidden gesture, a challenge to divine order. War in this context isn't chaos, it's calculated. The first strike in hell's retaliation. He was the first to rise beside Lucifer, and he will be the first to signal his return. But he is not alone. The others wait. In the desert of Famine, the second rider dwells, not with a sword, but with absence. And what he devours is more than bread. If this struck a chord, like this video, and helped spread the word, what if the hunger ravaging the world isn't physical but spiritual? After the roar of war comes the silence of scarcity, not just an ordinary emptiness, but a vacuum imposed, carefully crafted by unseen hands. The second seal was broken, and from it emerged a black horse, riding atop it, a specter who doesn't consume grain. He devours purpose. His name, found in lost texts from the Ugarit library. Hashema, the rider of famine. The Dead Sea Scrolls speak of an agent of the void, capable of draining faith, love, and hope from cities before a single loaf of bread disappears. In persecuted Gnostic communities of the 2nd century, Hashema was called the priest of the abyss, not for killing bodies, but for starving souls. What if humanity's deepest hunger comes from the deliberate absence of light? In a fragment of the apocryphal Gospel of Thomas, a forgotten warning is whispered. And hunger will come, not for food, but for meaning. The Black Rider doesn't bring simple lack. He brings a hunger with no name. That's why he strikes the voids. In cities, in networks, in altars, and more than that, he is the master of the illusion of abundance, a world bloated with consumption, but starved of truth. The scale in his hand doesn't weigh wheat. It weighs souls. It weighs values. It measures how much you accept each day, without realizing you're dying inside. What if famine's greatest trick is convincing us we're full? War opens the gates. Famine walks through the ruins and turns rubble into emotional wastelands. While the world stays entertained, something rotten and quiet grows within. Hashema doesn't shout. He whispers. He distracts. He numbs. But in the shadow of misery, a new plague moves. Not a virus, not bacteria, but intention. The third rider has already been seen, and he does not ride alone. Subscribe. What comes next is even darker. What if diseases aren't biological accidents, but coded messages from hell? Where famine walks, the flesh weakens. And where there's weakness, plague takes root. The third seal is broken, and a pale horse, corpse-colored beneath the moon, gallops across borders, airports, and human veins. He does not speak. He infects. And his name, according to the forbidden rites of the Order of Bones, is Virion, the rider of plague. A missing fragment from the Codex Gigas, the so-called Devil's Bible, speaks of a twisted angel, deformed by corrupted celestial light, sent not to kill, but to reveal. Virion doesn't create disease. He awakens what was already dormant in the flesh. He is the spark of consequence. And wherever he moves, truth decays faster than the body. In ancient Babylonian traditions suppressed by orthodoxy, there's mention of a being who spreads fevers of consciousness, plagues that attack certainty, corrupt faith, and infect reason. What if the real infection isn't in the lungs, but in our convictions? Virion is depicted in medieval icons as a physician with blindfolded eyes. He doesn't heal, he calculates. He appears at precise moments when humanity feels untouchable, then suddenly too fragile to stand. From the Black Death to HIV, from the Spanish flu to COVID-19, the pattern is always the same: invisible, silent, surgical. What if disease is merely the reflection of a soul-sick world? War opens the wounds, famine dries them out, and plague infects them. 3 movements, 3 seals, 3 signs, each pushing forward the march of Lucifer. But one remains, the most feared. The final one, the one who asks no questions. He simply closes your eyes, because after plague, he comes, the last rider, death. But what if he isn't the end? What if he is the beginning of something else? Share this with someone who needs to see what's been hidden. What if death isn't the end, but the doorway to true judgment? He doesn't ride fast. He doesn't need to. He knows everything ends with him. The 4th seal is broken, and a pale, almost translucent horse walks slowly through the ruins, left behind by war, famine, and plague. His name is not spoken aloud, but in many occult circles he is called Thanor, not as a reaper, but as a judge. In censored fragments of the Gospel of Mary Magdalene, there's a symbolic reference to the final gaze, a presence that in one's last moment reveals who truly ruled the soul. Thanor doesn't take, he reveals, not the death of the body, but the true state of the essence. What if death doesn't kill, but only exposes what was already rotting inside? In the Ethiopian book of Enoch, there is mention of a silent figure who doesn't speak but weighs, one who judges not with words, but with reflection. Death in that text isn't a punishment, it's a mirror. And Thanor is the one who shows before the crossing who you truly belong to. Thanor's erased symbol was an inverted helmet, an empty throne, because he doesn't need to rule, only to seal. While the other riders open wounds, Thanor closes doors permanently. What if death isn't feared because it's the end, but because it's the beginning of what comes unmasked? War destroys, famine dries out, plague corrupts, and death concludes. But that conclusion is actually an activation, because at the end of the fourth seal, something greater is revealed. Not the riders, but the one who commands them. In the deepest halls of hell, where 4 black thrones stand in perfect alignment, there is a 5th. Central, elevated, Lucifer does not merely observe. He prepares the ascension. Have you ever wondered about this? Leave your thoughts in the comments. What if Lucifer never lost the throne, but simply traded it for something far more powerful? Most people imagine Lucifer as fallen, broken, defeated. But what if the fall is only what they wanted us to see? At the center of forgotten legends, there lies a hidden chamber, not in heaven, not on earth, but on the edge of the unseen. There, 4 thrones point toward a 5th, and upon it sits one who does not shine, he burns. He does not shout, he commands. In the Gnostic Gospels of Valentinus, there is mention of a throne forged on the day the first angel doubted. That throne is not empty, it pulses. And according to mystics of the forbidden Kabbalah, it is not merely a seat, it is an altar where pacts were sealed with fire and silence. What if Lucifer was never exiled, but is the strategist behind every cycle of pain? A secret manuscript, attributed to Johannes Trithemius, the occult mentor of Cornelius Agrippa, refers to the 4 as the executors of the dark will. But the will belongs to one. Lucifer in these accounts doesn't appear as a creature, but as an embodied concept. The sacred insurgency. He does not command the horsemen, he shares purpose with them. Each one represents an aspect of inverted justice, the judgment of the unjust, carried out by the rejected. Death seals, and in sealing, activates the throne. A symbolic command code, written in human pain, in silent choices, in ignored decisions. That throne doesn't wait for the end, it triggers it. What if hell isn't the opposite of heaven, but it's denied reflection? Images found in scorched Templar tapestries depict a black throne, surrounded by 4 red moons. At its center, a figure with closed eyes and open hands, not seeking worship, but demanding absolute obedience. But the throne only exists because there was betrayal. A covenant was broken in heaven, and Lucifer was not the only one who fell. Others fell with him, and among them, a traitor among traitors. Like this, if any part of it made you uncomfortable. What if even in hell, there are traitors? Not every fallen angel fell by choice. Some were pushed. Others jumped out of loyalty. And one fell with 2 faces. While the 4 horsemen obey Lucifer's throne, there is a 5th name, hidden, erased from the heavenly records. The traitor among traitors. His name reappears in forbidden texts from the Essene sect of Qumran. Sariel, an angel who once swore to protect heaven's secrets, but who bargained away the keys to the abyss. The Book of the Secrets of Enoch, kept under lock and key in the secret archives of the Russian Orthodox Church, mentions Sariel as the keeper of the veil of transition, the one who watched and spied on both thrones and hells. But Sariel went further. He didn't just betray heaven, he betrayed Lucifer. He made parallel pacts. He tried to create his own bloodline of in-between beings, neither celestial nor demonic. What if the greatest secret of the apocalypse is that Lucifer never had full control over his own legion? According to a fragment of the Testament of Solomon, rejected by official councils, Sariel was the one who whispered ideas of destruction directly into the hearts of humans. Wars without purpose, plagues without origin, deaths without justice. The work of the horsemen, twisted by him. Sariel acted as the phantom 5th horseman. No horse, no color, no fixed command, He manipulated. He corrupted the structure. He tried to steal the march for himself. What if the true cause of the final rupture is the rebellion within hell? Lucifer commands, but even the darkest throne has cracks. And those cracks have a name. Zariel crafted forbidden rituals to destabilize the Horsemen. He aimed to disrupt the march of the end, not to stop it, but to redirect it to himself. But Zariel is no longer among us. Some say he was imprisoned. Others say he walks in disguise among leaders. And there are dark, forbidden whispers that the fifth seal will only break when he is revealed. Subscribe. The truth doesn't end here. What if the final seal of the apocalypse isn't in heaven, but buried deep within us? 4 seals, 4 horsemen, 4 visible disasters. But the fifth is invisible and infinitely more dangerous. In the Revelation of John, the fifth seal is described in just a few words, almost as if it were intentionally hidden. I saw under the altar the souls of those who had been slain for the word of God. Slain or silenced? According to the Coptic Gospel of Seth, suppressed in the 4th century, the fifth seal isn't a prophecy of the end, but a mirror of the present. It reveals that the true apocalypse doesn't begin with external chaos, but with the inner collapse of humanity. The seal breaks every time a person betrays their own essence, every time truth is suppressed, every time faith is turned into a spectacle. What if the seal breaks every time we deny who we truly are? In Hermetic writings banned by the Council of Trent, the fifth seal is called the hidden spark within the human spirit. The key to the rupture isn't in the skies, but in the silent choices repeated every single day. It's the seal Lucifer never broke. He waited for us to do it ourselves. That was Zariel's role, the traitor, to corrupt slowly, to whisper distractions, to raise blind leaders and hollow preachers. He didn't kill, he seduced. And now, the seal is shattering into thousands of fragments, each one shaped like a decision. Zariel prepared the ground. But the final blow depends on humanity, and maybe it already happened. What if the final rupture has already begun and no one noticed? Because we were all too distracted? Images found in the catacombs of Alexandria show the fifth seal as a child with stitched eyes, a symbol of what was silenced before it could speak, denied before it could be understood. The fifth seal is sleeping awareness. It is denied judgment. It is the truth, hidden in plain sight. But when the fifth seal finally breaks, it's no longer Lucifer who speaks. He listens, because something older than him awakens in the vacuum of human consciousness. Something not even hell can control. Tag someone who dare watch this till the end. What if even hell is afraid of what comes after the final seal? The fifth seal has been broken, and the silence that followed wasn't peace. It was containment, because what had been contained wasn't evil. It was the original judgment, that which came before heaven and hell. The apocryphal texts of the Apocalypse of Peter describe something rare, a moment when even the fallen angels stop and look upward, not in rebellion, but in fear. According to the Book of Melchizedek, partially found in the Nag Hammadi scrolls, there exists a pre-Luciferian force older than the creation of linear time, called the Forgotten, an entity that existed before the duality of good and evil. Not light, not darkness, pure imbalance. This force cannot be summoned. It awakens when every pact has been broken. What if everything we know, heaven, hell, soul, time, is just a containment field for something far greater? The 6th and 7th seals, rarely mentioned, don't bring riders, don't bring plagues, they bring silence. And there was silence in heaven for about half an hour, not out of reverence, out of paralysis. At this point, Lucifer is no longer the villain. He's a sentinel. The riders are not destroyers. They're guards, protecting a fragile veil. Zariel tried to tear that veil to claim control, but instead, he triggered the unthinkable. What if the riders don't serve Lucifer, but protect the world from him? The 5th seal was broken by humans themselves, and in doing so, something was released. Something that doesn't seek power. It seeks a reset. not through redemption, but through complete annihilation. In hidden frescoes beneath the chambers of Toledo, there's a painting of a circle inside an eye, inside a mouth, inside a body unraveling. The faded inscription reads, "When the nameless is named, the world will be weighed and forgotten." And now, as the four riders gather one last time, a question echoes through the deepest layers of existence. Will even hell be destroyed in the process? And if so, who will be left to tell the story? What if the story of the apocalypse isn't a prophecy but a distorted memory? 4 horsemen, 1 throne, 1 traitor, 5 seals broken, and something awakened. But in the end, what's truly being revealed? Maybe it was never about the end of the world, but the unmasking of reality. In the Aleppo manuscripts, lost after the bombings of 1947, there's a scorched and censored passage that claims, "The world of men is not creation, but containment. Matter is not the beginning." But the wars, the famines, the plagues, the deaths, they were never punishments. They were warnings. In this forgotten vision, Lucifer is not the adversary. He is the echo of forbidden freedom. He doesn't want to rule the world. He wants to expose the hidden system that traps everything, even him. What if the 4 horsemen are not harbingers of destruction, but signs of a final chance? Not to destroy, but to awaken, each one triggering a rupture needed to break the cycle. Because there is something worse than hell. The perfect lie. What if absolute good is the most effective disguise for control? This entire journey has led to this moment. War unmasks false peace. Famine exposes greed. Plague strips away illusion. Death disconnects the dream. And Lucifer lights the mirror. What if this isn't the apocalypse, but the awakening? The throne isn't just Lucifer's. It's his reflection inside each of us. And the real judgment doesn't come from above. It rises from within. Maybe what you feared was never the end, but what you'd uncover if all this were true. And if the horsemen still ride, it's not to destroy the world. It's to destroy the illusion that sustains it. What if all of this is real? What if you already know, but are afraid to admit it? What if it's real? Then write your truth below.